Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to WrestleLine. And of course, this is part two of the Diesel timeline. I'm your host, John Scott, joined again this week with my co-host Matt Essex. And Matt, we've hit 1995 at the very beginning, and just to sort of give a little brief summary of what happened, where we came from. We're obviously at the point now where Diesel is the current WWF champion. Almost the stars of almost all aligned for Big Daddy called Diesel here. He's won Intercontinental Gold now. He was a tag team champion as well. Those belts become vacated the moment after Survivor Series because the partners couldn't get on. And, he wins in, 11 seconds or whatever it was against Bob Backlund. And here we are in just basically almost his first full year of kind of wrestling for the WWF. And he is the current WWF champion. So I want to bring us up now to the Wrestling Observer from January the 2nd, 1995. And we've got a timeline fact here, and that is that Jim Ross was rehired to work in the booking department and will start to oversee the television again. He won't be doing the announcing, however. Apparently Pat Patterson is going to cut down on his workload, and Ross is being put in to kind of pick up the slack with all the creative stuff and kind of that whole role that he would end up having as head of talent relations at that point. So Jim Ross at this point is kind of overseeing at a more higher level at this point, and that will obviously affect things for the likes of Diesel at this point. Fun fact here, WWF sent a memo to all employees saying any contact with anyone at WCW will result in immediate dismissal. When you read, this is 1995, Matt, and obviously the wars they're going to come into play this year almost with the whole live thing going on. But, we're at the early stages of 95, and obviously business isn't at its all-time high with the WWF. To bring you in, first of all, Matt, what do you think it was? Do you think even at this point in the early stages of 95 there was almost a real trust issue here with WWF and their employers to be putting that sort of a statement out to in a memo? I'm guessing they must have been thinking we're going to make it a zero tolerance if anybody does think that they can just jump ship at this point.
Yeah, I've got to say I couldn't really blame them for that either. The way the talent is in '95, it's almost a little bit thin on top there, so I wouldn't be too keen on any of my top guys looking at possible other opportunities, because this is a real time of building up on your superstars, and you need to actually keep them there to actually progress them, to actually make them into big stars, because like you said, it's not exactly, business is not booming in the WWF at this time. So yeah, definitely need to keep your people there and actually build those characters, because you need to look at who you can make into your next star, and I guess that's kind of what they're doing with Diesel here. So if he was to look at WCW, I'm sure that would put a real kink in their plans.
Absolutely. It's worth pointing out as well that Shawn Michaels is going to be due back from his injury at the Royal Rumble. He can't work right now because he's got 2 pins in his head. But he's on the road nonetheless, and the word and the talk, even at this point, Matt, and we're at January the 2nd, Dave Meltzer's reporting that the hottest potential right now going into WrestleMania will be the matchup between the former tag team of Diesel and Michaels, Bodyguard, and all the rest of it, of that relationship. So even then, it's kind of the talk of the town that is what WWF is positioning. It's also, as we go through into January, Diesel missed some shows in Anaheim and San Francisco because his mother had recently died, and he'd been replaced by Razor Ramon on the who was working on the house show. So he was taking some time off around that for grievance there, and those kind of things. And then apparently there's already a lot of talk within the company that Diesel isn't the answer, and the idea of going with Backlund on top was a fiasco blamed on Patterson. I don't know if they'll do a change to Hart or Michaels. Meltzer reports, my feeling is they've got WrestleMania plans locked in, whatever they are. Whatever changes in direction will be made really won't be in effect until after WrestleMania at this point. So I guess from this sort of standpoint, Matt, there's still a lot of kind of eyebrows being raised. Is this just another guy who's come along in the mindset of Vince McMahon, who is the next Hulk Hogan, I guess, the next guy who can lead this charge in. Like you said last time, Matt, he definitely has the look that Vince McMahon would want, but I mean, we covered Lex Luger, of course, on this podcast, and don't forget to check that out on our archives, guys, if you want to check that one out. But in his line, Matt, I think that it was obvious that Vince even then wanted somebody to replace Hulk Hogan. Do you feel like this is almost the same, or what is different here between Diesel and Luger's? As I know that obviously Diesel actually has won the title here, but in terms of the promotion, is this done better than what Luger's creative was? Do you feel, or is this almost like we're pushing you with Diesel, or do you think they've done this the right way because they've just done it almost overnight here, rather than with the whole build-up and the Lex Express?
Well, yeah, I think like Diesel did capture the title like pretty early on in his career there, but it just didn't really seem like that. It felt like they held off a little bit longer than like they probably could have, because it felt like they spent a lot more time just building him up, playing it cool, and just like gathering interest in him from the fans beforehand, as a mysterious kind of type, and then just make it much more natural. It wasn't so in your face with Lex; they were just pretty much shoving him down your throat almost. Yeah. But with Diesel, they kind of waited for him to get to that level where the fans actually were wanting him to win it, rather than it being just known and thrown in your face that he was going to go for it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, here's some end of year awards. Then this is by the Wrestling Observer, and this is a voted poll. And Diesel gets first place as most improved wrestler. Matt, would you pretty much say that was the case of that year of a guy who obviously came from WCW as Vinny Vegas and Oz and all the rest of it, all these weird characters. He was in WWF, of course. He was there in 93, but he kind of was just playing the bodyguard. But in 94, he's literally had quite a hell of a run. Do you pretty much put that as the same, that he would definitely have been improved at that point, and this is the Diesel we all now remember?
Yeah, like a dramatic improvement. I mean, and to look at him from his days in like early WCW to coming to WWF, you could almost say they're like two different men almost. And he definitely really upped his game. And I guess you got to try and do that if they've got like these kind of huge plans. Sure. And you're going to be working with people like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. I'm guessing that's going to help you as well get better. Yeah,
it's fascinating because the other side of it is that he's also on the list of the most overrated award, but he's not at like number one or anything, but he is number 5. But it's interesting when you try and compare the two things, but I guess the overratedness is probably just the way WWF kind of call his matches and talk about him, in a sense of maybe he's not quite as good as that. But guess who tops the most overrated for 94, Matt? Brother. Oh. There's a little clue. Yes, Hulk Hogan is in at number. Oh. So he made it at number 4. He was still
quite popular at that point.
Oh yeah, no, he was considered the most overrated wrestler in the year of 94, at least on this vote anyway, and by quite a long stretch by the looks of it. Closely followed by Lex Luger. So that shows where he was at at that point. Okay, moving forward now, and Vince McMahon attempted to get several of his wrestlers into Baywatch, the show with a wrestling theme, but was turned down. Matt, this is like, I don't know if I'm not just trying to plug Baywatch every time we do this podcast, but like the vibe I get that Baywatch was obviously very popular, part of the whole culture of what was going on at this time. With WWF, and obviously a lot of wrestlers from WCW did have spots in Baywatch, and like we said, Giant Gonzalez had a spot in there as well. I guess Baywatch was something that the majority of people, at least in the US, were very hot on at the time. So it would have made sense to have your wrestlers in it, but do you think that would have gone? I mean, I'm guessing that would have been a spot for a Diesel or a Shawn Michaels in that spot. I'm guessing that Vince would have wanted to pitch. I don't know what sort of idea he would have pitched, but could you imagine anybody else at that point turning up in Baywatch?
I could imagine someone like Shawn Michaels there just posing off.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Getting his bod out.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I suppose it's worth pointing out that, don't forget, the whole idea here is we're in 95, and of course they managed to pull off a coup here and get Pamela Anderson involved for this Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. She's kind of been brought in here as kind of like, you're going to get this, you get to walk out with her, don't you? I think that's the prize as well. So it's not only that you're getting the spot at WrestleMania, but now you get to have Pamela Anderson walk you down the aisle. So so they managed to get that. So I'm guessing at the time they thought maybe we can do some inter-promotional stuff between the two, but obviously that didn't pan out. And that brings us on nicely to our next part, and there was a promotional video on the cable channels for the Royal Rumble, and it's based more on Pamela Anderson, reports Meltzer, than on wrestling. Then again, the previous ones were based on Chuck Norris, respectively, rather than wrestling when he turned up in Survivor Series. I guess you'll remember that. Anderson will accompany the winner of the Royal Rumble into the title match at WrestleMania. So that's the whole theme there. We'll probably talk about that a little bit more as we go along. This is the Superstars taping now, and this is from the 10th of the 1st of 95. And Diesel is having a match here. He beats Jeff Jarrett, kind of out of nowhere, those matches. Really, I don't know where they were kind of trying to position him, but he's also wrestling Jarrett on the house show circuit as well. WWF, so he's done almost 3 matches WWF title against beating Jeff Jarrett. Kind of an interesting one there, Matt, because when Jarrett come in, he was taken a little bit more serious, and then of course he done the whole gimmick stuff. But when Jarrett first hit, I guess that there was a possibility that Jarrett could work as a good heel against the top babyface essentially at the time. Back then. Any good memories from you of Jarrett, as far as, because I don't know when we'll talk about him too much, but Jeff Jarrett overall, I mean, obviously everyone associates him now with TNA, quite big there, and his whole sort of thing that he's done. Do you think his WWF run was slightly, was it just a case of never being used properly, Matt, overall?
Yeah, it was a big case of that. I mean, obviously he had a lot of talent, and I'm sure WWF could see that. It was just like he was given gimmicks that were just way too loud and way too colourful. And that's stuff that he used to wear. I think.
Yeah, I think that done it for me.
When the Attitude Era hit, I think he really sort of came into his own, and his character opened up a lot more. And I'm sure if he stayed with WWF, he would have had a lot of success there with that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, Meltzer reports around this time with having these matches with Jarrett. The reason Jarrett was brought into the house show programs is because the Diesel Backlund program that they were trying to run for some time at the house shows really were cold, and the houses were down. They weren't selling everything out, so they put Jeff Jarrett in. But Meltzer reports the feeling is that someone, either Diesel or the Office, realised the matches were as bad, which doesn't help the Diesel project getting off the ground. and Backlund is just so hard to work with. Funny thing is, Meltzer reports is the switch the match in New York, which is